And welcome back to Bunter's Yard. So today is the build guide for the Maplin Mill low relief factory unit, or the mill, whatever you want to call it. This was initially built for Trist over at Double O'Neill, and it's been quite popular. There's been a bit of interest, so I thought we'd make a full kit and the supporting build video. I'll leave the link to Trist down in the description. If you're not already following him, just do give him a follow, subscribe, like, comment, and all the usual stuff. Is definitely worth having a watch of his channel. Very interesting indeed. So in the bag you'll see the smaller pieces are separated into their own little bag, just to keep them nice and safe. We'll come back to those in a bit. And then the main parts of the building. So this bit is the roof, the bit with the lines on. There's a little mark which will be in the top left hand corner. We'll come back to that in a bit. That becomes relevant a little bit later on. And then we've got the brick cladding for the fronts and the two bits for the sides. This part here is the tiles for the roof. We'll come back to that bit later on. And then the main carcass for the building. So there's just four walls and the roof section. There's no sort of base section for this particular one, like there is on some of the other models. So let's get assembling, and we'll go from there. So when I design these with my paint process in mind. You may decide that you want to do it slightly differently. You may want to assemble everything and then paint it afterwards, or paint with a brush. Entirely up to you, but this is just the way I do it. So have a watch through the video and just adapt it to whatever suits you. So the brick cladding goes obviously on the top there, and it's quite obvious I think where it goes. You just need to make sure that once it's fitted, there's a kind of 1mm rebate around the windows, where the windows, the glass, and the frames will pop into. They kind of sit in there. We're going to use rocket car glue for the main, as our main glue for the MDF parts. And I find that this does come out really fast. So just beware with this. If we get any sort of oozing around out the windows and the top where the little pieces are going to slot in, then need to wipe that back before it goes off, before it sets. So you can see around the windows there's that 1mm rebate. Just make sure that's kind of square all the way around. The bottom of the cladding will line up with the bottom of the carcass. So for the sides, there's the left and the right hand brick piece. The interior parts of the carcass there, they're not sided, so they will fit on either. So a little bit of our rocket glue on the. That's it. Got the wrong one, but never mind. I say they're not sided, so it doesn't really matter. So if you look from the back, it fits exactly into the brick cladding, and it leaves those little kind of keyways and the finger joints, or whatever you want to call them, for a bit later on. And just to make sure I get the right side, we'll put it on the brick, which is probably sensible anyway. And then we'll set them aside, a bit of weight on the top, and we'll let them dry fully. So once the bottom is dried, we'll fit the top, and again it needs to have that sort of 1mm rebate, but it needs a space where this ledge is going to sit, and the ledge is going to pop in there. It's about 2mm, but use this piece as a guide if you're sort of following my process. Pop it in there. Just one thing to point out now is that if you're going to paint things like the ledge and some of the little ornate pieces before you fit them, the paint will add to the thickness. So just do leave a little bit spare. Just once you fit it, just nudge it up a real tiny amount. Otherwise you might find, if your paint is quite thick, if you use a few layers, primers and so on, then it may be a little bit tight. So let's just kind of fit this where it's going to go roughly. Pop that into place just to give us a guide. And then we're going to move it up ever so slightly just to give us a little more clearance. And we'll slide it just a little tiny bit. Pop that out of the way. And then we'll let that set. So in our bag, let's have a quick look, see what we've got, all the bits and pieces, and I'll point them out. I'm sure they're obvious what they are, but anyway, I'll explain. So we've got a door which is cut from ply. It goes that way up with the chevrons pointing upwards. We've got our window section, which is pre-cut, just got some little tabs you need to release, and the same for the windows, the window frames. Again, they've just got little tabs, one on either side, that you need to cut to release them. Best to leave them on the card for now. These bits are the window ledges or the window sills, and they are slightly curved on one edge, but which is the outside. And then we've got these. I'm sure they've got a name, but they go in there. Them bits there, and you need 32 for this kit, and there should be a few spares in the bag, so you'll have a couple left over. So I find for the smaller pieces that it's easier to paint them stuck to a card. So this is what we call foam core. So you can buy big sheets of this for a few pounds at the range or your local art store. And I just cut them into strips and just find them useful. And then we're going to use some double-sided tape, and then we can stick them down on a face that doesn't need to be painted. Again, if you're fitting these to your model before you paint them, obviously you can disregard this step. I need to fit all the 32 on there. It becomes a bit tedious, so we'll jump ahead. I'm sure you don't need to watch me fit all 32 of them on. And the spares, of course, if you want to do that. And then the window ledges, there's 8 of those. Again, just attach them on an edge that doesn't need to be painted. That's it. And you may notice there's actually 9 windows and 9 window frames. There's just one spare. It's just easy to print it, cut it that way for you. So there's a spare in case you mess up with the glass or if you damage one or whatever. So the door we're also going to attach. We're going to paint that in green, the same as the windows. We're going to go for a gloss green today, but leave them attached. This is my particular way of doing it. Just leave them on the card. It's easier to handle them all in one go. And then the roof section, we're going to give a paint as well, rather than just leave it plain, just in case any bits are showing through. We're going to paint that to match the kind of tile colour. So if we look at our building now, the interior, you can see through the windows obviously. So on this particular one, what we will do is just kind of add a colour to the bare MDF, just to disguise that. If you're going to use any sort of other decoration, then you might want to change your colour. So people ask what we prime with, and this is what I use. This is a high coat, which is available from Amazon or from the range. It's anywhere between £3 and £8 a can, depends on the size and how many you buy. But it's just a car primer, either that or Halford's. And for the colours on the brick, we're going to use red leather because we're doing a red brick building. And then the sand will be our contrast colour for a around the windows and the ledges and the other bits and pieces on that card. A few people ask about the different paints. Now these are both Vallejo's. You can see one is Model Air, one's Model Colour. So the Model Air, that one there with a black lid, that's already pre-thinned. So if you're using an airbrush, literally just pour it in and away you go. If you're using Model Colour, that's not thin. You need to thin that down, and I'm just using Vallejo airbrush thinner, and you mix it about 50-50. It should have a nice thin, kind of milky consistency. For the back, we're going to use a dark grey, and we're just going to put that on in a sort of patchy way, just so it's we just don't want a solid colour basically. And then for the windows and the door, which I've attached to the card, we're going to use just a car spray. So this is a Ford colour. This is again a high coat from the range. They're about £4 or £5 a go. Right, so once our brick is set, we just need to paint in the contrast colour. You may choose a different colour scheme. You may want to keep yours all in red brick or yellow brick or whatever the case may be. Because they're etched, it's quite easy to cut into these and get a nice sharp edge. You might need, with Model Air colours, a couple of passes because it's relatively thin, so you may need to let it dry and then give it another go. Then we're going to do all the tops of the windows as well. Again, it's etched, so it's easy to get a nice sharp finish. Now we're going to leave the brick in just this plain red. If you want to get a bit more involved, I'll put a link to the video on the screen now, and also in the description and at the end of the video as well, for the sand house at Didcot, which explains how we did some of the paint work on the bricks on there. So the window ledges just pop into place there. Need to glue them in. Use card glue or super glue. They're a very tight fit. And again, if you're quite heavy with the paint, you may they may be even tighter. So the little supports or the brackets or whatever they are, I'm sure they've got a proper name. Someone will tell me, I'm sure, in the comments. They just need to be glued into place. You'll notice possibly that the end ones are missing. We're going to leave them off. So the very extreme of the left and right, top and bottom edges, we'll leave off just for the moment. We'll fit them a bit later on. It's easier in and after another process. And we're using super glue just for speed, just to add on the ledge. That just pops into place there. Just make sure it's centered, and it should line up perfectly left and right, so it should be a nice flush fit left and right. And then we need to do the same for the top. The ledge has an etching on the top of it, so that's the sort of the stone pattern, the brick pattern. So just be aware of that. So windows, we need to pop them out. They may need a very slight trim around these bits because they're a snug fit. Just make sure they're nice and square. You've got no extra bits hanging over. And where did that come from? That's one of the spares. And then the windows, the window frames as well, and they've got a lug either side, a little tab just to hold them in place. Just cut through those. Again, need to be quite a straight cut, no sort of excess left on, because they will they are again a snug fit into the aperture, into the rebate. So we're not going to glue the glass in place. We're actually going to get the frame to hold that in place. So we're just going to drop these in. You may want to do it differently. This works for me. It just it gives a cleaner finish. So once the glass is in place, we then need to fit in the frames. Just do this one dry. We haven't got any glue on this at the moment. It literally goes in there, and it is a nice, hopefully, snug fit for you. Now I find the best way to fit is to just glue along the edges. We're going to use super glue again. I'm only using a real tiny amount on either side. If you want to use so Rocket do another like a glazing glue, which is quite nice, because that if that dries and you get it all over the place, it comes off with water, which is really nice. I've used that on a couple of other projects, but on this one, because the way the window frame holds in the glass, we're just going to go straight for the super glue. So the frame is attached to the side of the building, and the window has no glue on it at all, so it should give you a cleaner finish. And once they're all in place, hopefully it will look something like this, depending on your colour scheme, of course. And there we are, all fully glazed. So most of our buildings, with one exception, has glazing included. I think it's kind of almost an essential part. I know lots of 3D kits come with that glass. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning behind that is, but anyway, we're in a position where we can provide glass with all of our buildings. So doors just fit in there with a bit of super glue, and then we need to fit the sides, and it will only fit in one way, so it's going to be quite obvious. They're just going to fit there with the roof line sloping up toward the back. The back of the building will then go in there. That's how we're going to glue it in place. But let's use some glue and get that done properly. We can use the Rocket glue again. And then we'll just use one of our metal blocks, our 1, 2, 3 blocks, just to hold that square while it dries. Same for the other side. And we use one of our blocks again to hold it in place, and to hold it square to the front of the building. And then finally the back. And then if you've done it correct up to here, that'll fit in nice and snugly. So that's the main bit done. We're coming towards the end. We need to fit those 4 final pieces on the ends there, such as that. The reason I leave them to the end is because they kind of attach to the side wall, strangely enough, once it's all assembled. We're just going to use super glue, just again for speed, just to fit this in place. And there we go. Oops, let's try again. And that's better. It was the wrong way up. And then we've got the roof section. So let's go back to the roof. So we're going to paint the roof in grey. Now you don't need to do that, but just in case anything shows through. Now you'll notice on the card yours will be plain black. Well, we've done a little splatter effect on this to give a sort of lichen appearance for the roof tiles. There's a link up the top here if you're watching on a PC, and that will take you to one of our line side buildings where we've done this technique before, or it'll be in the description down below, or at the end on the card at the end. So if you watch the video to the end, you'll be able to see how we do that if that's something that interests you. So on the roof section, there's a little tiny mark on the top left hand corner. That's where it needs to be. The only difference is the lines are very slightly differently spaced from the bottom upwards. If you get it the wrong way up, it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but that's kind of the way it's designed. Now, rather than gluing these on, we use double-sided tape. I just find it a bit cleaner for this one. The only problem is it does kind of obscure the lines. I can see them probably on the video, not quite as clear, but you can just make them out. So there are 10 pieces of the roof tiles. You're only going to need 9, so you'll have a spare just in case any disaster happens or you space them incorrectly or differently. So I'm lining mine up with the right hand edge at the moment. So and then just follow the line, and you can see it lines up at the right there. And then generally what happens with roof tile is that they kind of stagger by half a tile. So the next one will go on and we'll just nudge it to the right by half a tile, and then it fits on the next line up, which is about another 3 millimeters away. Just see the line there. That's it. And you'll have some excess. We're going to have to trim them off in a little while, but we're going to carry on in the same fashion. So the next one up again, so that needs to be staggered, so we'll line that up with the edge of the roof section again, and then so on until we get to the top. You can see the pattern emerging, and then we just need to trim these pieces off whatever way suits you really. I'm using a blade. It's quite thick in places, so you just need to go through on a few passes, or you can use scissors if that's what you prefer. And then that's that part finished, and it just needs to stick into place on the top there, and it lines up with either end. We're going to use our rocket glue again. If you get any excess on there, there's a lot there. It comes out really fast sometimes, rocket glue. Just take off what you don't need. Yeah, otherwise it oozes down the side of the building and it's a bit unsightly. So that fits in flush with the back, flush with each side, and we'll let that set, and we'll call that one done, I think. So there we go, that's Maplin Mill. This is the 00 gauge. There is an O gauge as well. The link will be in the description for the O gauge and the 00 gauge if you want to pop on to the website and order your own. Thanks for watching. We'll speak to you again very soon at Bunter's Yard.